your guide to the truth, thenewamericanmedia.com.
Broadcasting to you live from the Milky Way galaxy, my name's Brian Engelman, and this is The New American Media. We've been covering news for the past 8 years, and the tech censorship and the encroach of the 1984 Orwellian wrong speak has been kind of advancing in incremental ways with giant leaps forward. Inch, 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 take a few feet. Inch, 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 take a few feet. And we've seen it lately. We've seen it with, what's the saying? At first they came for Alex Jones and I said nothing. Then they came for Steven Crowder, and then they came for my buddy Ford Fischer of News to Share. I've been linked up with Ford, talking with him as he's been in, Baltimore, Ferguson, DC, covering all these protests, doing documentaries, having footage used, and footage even used in court. He's basically there with the camera, documenting things, and then it's up to us as the consumer to figure out what it is. We're not getting the wash, we're not getting the slant, the spin, the twist on what's going on. It's just gathering information and putting it out there, and then he licenses it to people that want to pay for it to run it on their networks. It's journalism. Now journalism is being hammered by YouTube. We're going to bring him into the program and discuss what the latest is. There we go. Ooh, I am calling through Gmail, through Google Voice. Let's see if they're going to give me a hard time about this too.
Hello.
Hello, Ford Fischer. This is Brian Engelman. You are live on the air. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing, mixed. As you know, and the reason you're calling me is because YouTube demonetized all of my content as of yesterday. So I guess you could say it is a difficult 24 hours, but I have been encouraged to see the number of sort of news outlets that have taken an interest in it. The Washington Examiner just put out a pretty thorough profile of what happened specifically to me. Forbes called me earlier, and I've got a couple other some big interviews lined up that I won't say until they're done. But people are paying attention to this issue, and I hope that makes a difference. I am quite comfortable saying that I hope to make YouTube uncomfortable from a PR perspective until they fix this.
Yeah, and I led off the show. I think you clicked on one of the Facebook feeds, and I said first they came for Alex Jones, and I said nothing because, come on, he does it to himself. But there's a slippery slope here. There's incremental advances in what YouTube has been doing with censorship. I want to get into all the meat and potatoes of this with you. But first, just to make sure that I've articulated your background correctly, can you explain to the viewer, I've known you for years, can you explain why you started News to Share, what you've been doing over the years, and what type of content it is that you create?
Yeah, so basically News to Share is a raw footage outlet where I like to use live stream and raw video with extremely minimal commentary on my part and provided only to explain context so people just basically understand what's going on. But I really just let the content speak for itself. So I cover activism and in some cases extremism or extremist activism, and I film them in a very raw way. So whether it is the far left or the far right or any other group, I film them, and basically every kind of activist that is covered by me knows that they are basically getting a fair shake, where I'm not promoting them, I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I'm going to show exactly what happens. If someone gets into an argument with someone and wins that argument, you'll see it, and whatever. So the idea is to have raw footage that people are able to look at and make their own decisions and analysis about, and that other media can look at and make their own decisions about. So the idea is that other outlets who don't have that same style, and I realize that not every piece of news can be presented in a raw footage format, but there are people who are more analytical, who are more opinion-based and what have you, and those people can and do cite my work and license it. Right, so if I go out there and I film a press conference or a protest or a riot, for that matter, other outlets may have analysis of those sorts of things, and they're free to use my content either by embedding it or licensing it or linking it. to help make the points that they want to make about it. But at the end of the day, I like the idea of providing the viewer with that real, raw, primary source look at the thing that happened.
And so that I'm clear, and so that the viewers who aren't as familiar with you are clear, some of the stuff on your resume, the protests and riots, what are a few that you've been to, going out there doing the dirty work of journalism, kind of going to places that a lot of us don't want to put on a helmet and deal with? You're out there. Can you list a few of those for us?
Yeah, so I was in Baltimore during kind of the Black Lives Matter protests of 2015. Charlottesville in 2017 is what a lot of people know me because of. I was recently, in February, I was in France covering the Yellow Vest riots for a few weeks. I have covered ones in Berkeley, California, Portland, Oregon, Georgia, some interesting situations in Georgia, even Providence, Rhode Island. So really I go wherever the story is going to take me, and I rely on the YouTube ad revenue to help me do that. I rely on basically Patreon and ad revenue, so people directly donating and then people watching ads in order to make a budget to do those things. And YouTube has taken away one of those two consistent sources of income. Right.
Do me a favor. Tell people, I'm going to jump to the end where I say, now tell us where you can donate if you're interested. Do it now in the beginning. Where are those links? Where should they? Are you on Patreon or did they ban you too? Because this is a slippery slope where almost every site is cracking down on everybody. So what's left for you? What's a good place where people can help?
Well, at the moment, I've been very pleased with the outpouring of support that a lot of new people have joined my Patreon, and I look forward to hopefully seeing them stick with me even when this isn't a story anymore, right? I realize that I am rather popular in the last 24 hours. My phone's sort of ringing off the hook. I've gotten, something like 4,000 new Twitter followers. But at some point, this isn't going to be a news story anymore, and the news that I do is going to be the story. I don't like to be the subject of the news. I like to just cover it. In case people haven't realized from my style, I'm actually not very ever present in my own work. So with all of that being said, joining my Patreon and then sticking with me for the long haul is the way to do that. And that's Patreon, patreon.com/Ford Fischer, FORDFISCHER is my name. And that's how you can contribute once a month to keep my work going.
Heck yeah, very good. By the way, we're getting comments saying we need more confrontational journalism. People are thanking you for going out there and doing what you're doing. One of the things, if you mentioned it, you might have glossed over it, or I was thinking up a question and I didn't hear you. You ran into an issue out over in Baltimore where the powers that be caught you in a net where you didn't deserve to be, right? Now, you settled that case and you're able to talk about it, or we don't talk about it?
I will never be able to talk about it, so I'm going to offer you no comments, but other than to say that the case is no more, but I can't tell you anything else.
Wow, okay, well then I'll just leave it there. But then I'll tell the listeners this is not the first time Ford has been caught in a net where he didn't deserve to be. He's almost like the dolphin when they're doing the tuna fishing. So
yes, someone wrote that. That was boingboing.com, I think that's the name of a technology website that literally wrote that I'm a dolphin caught in a tuna net.
Oh, that's great. Great minds think alike. I'll have to check out their site a little bit more. I'm not as familiar with it. But yeah, so Ford's out there doing the dirty work. He's doing the, to quote the immigration phrase, he's doing the jobs us Americans just don't want to do. It's a very weird breed of people that will be out there protesting and getting into melees and in the fracas of the heated political debate. But Ford's there, and he's not really picking a side. And when did you first become aware of what happened by YouTube, and have you had any correspondence with them since?
Yeah, so it's actually kind of funny. Yesterday, I saw a news story that was sort of just released. This is early afternoon yesterday, that said YouTube is about to take down, several channels based on new community standards or something. Mm-hmm. And I had no idea that it was going to affect mine, because to be perfectly honest, my content is obviously not extremist content. It's obviously not inappropriate when viewed through the lens of the fact that it is raw video of newsworthy and historical situations meant for critical analysis, right? That's what it is, and YouTube basically says that they support that. And YouTube basically just went bonkers, right? So just to give an example of a like one of the channels that went down yesterday, but apparently has already been restored, probably because this example was so plainly egregious. And I think that mine is somewhat similar, but this was even more obviously ridiculous. There was a literal history teacher,
yes.
a school teacher, who had a YouTube channel that he used as a resource for teaching, and the channel was removed because it had videos of Adolf Hitler on them speaking, right? And so obviously this is for historical and teaching purposes because he's a literal teacher, right? So in my case, it is for the sake of analysis. It's history in the making. It's not propaganda for the people who are in the videos, and to the contrary, it is cited by the organizations that study and oppose those people. The Southern Poverty Law Center has cited me. Many documentaries have used my footage. My footage has been used in Academy Award and Emmy-winning and Walter Cronkite Excellence in Journalism award-winning projects. So this is obviously content that is meant for critical analysis, and so I assumed that it didn't even cross my mind that YouTube's new community policies could have affected that. With all of that being said, I posted that link to that story, not having any idea that I'd be caught in it when I saw it happen. And it was minutes later that I looked at my email and saw that I had been notified. 2 of my videos were taken down. I got separate emails for those 2, and then 6 minutes later, and all of this was simultaneous with the news release about it. 6 minutes later, a email saying that your entire account has been ruled, after we've carefully looked through, your entire account has been ruled ineligible for monetization.
Careful review, right? After careful review.
Very carefully, so carefully. They must have really looked through it with a fine, a
fine-tooth comb. Yeah, when you're taking down Mr. Allsup History, I believe the guy's channel's called, we've entered 1984, and there's a reason why I've been rallying against this stuff for so many years. At the beginning of the New American Media, I knew where social media was going to take us. I knew where technology was going to take us. I knew where the tracking and the data collection and the misrepresentations and the complicated algorithms and the double standards and the selective enforcement. I've known that this is where we've been headed for a long time. I've been talking about it. And for a while we were called crazy. But I think if you just go back through time, 8 years ago, and you think YouTube, 15, 16 years ago, it's really bearing it's bearing the fruit of what we all worried this could be. And now the future of journalism is really on the line. The future of communication, the future of making money, because the platform versus publisher conversation is something that has now taken the forefront of trying to figure out what YouTube is. So when you were notified, what has been the follow-up to this? Because as a content creator, you're trying to make a living off of this. We were given a bill of goods saying that YouTube was going to be a place where we should be able to work together and make money on a partnership. So we build businesses. We're the ones that populate all of the content on the site. Have you seen a follow-up? Is there what is your recourse? What stage are you at? Are you considering legal action? What options do you have on the table?
No. Yeah, that's like the whole answer. No.
Nope.
So, no, they have not. Yeah, nope. They haven't given any kind of real follow-up. So what they did is not appealable. They do not offer an option to appeal it. They do say that in 30 days, within the next 30 days, I could clean up the channel, right? I could take things down that could potentially be considered offensive. But the honest truth is, I don't know what they consider to be potentially offensive. All of it is news content. There's nothing posted on it in bad faith. There's nothing posted on it for the purpose of promoting hate speech or hateful ideologies. So it all should meet the community standards as written. And so I'm not sure I know what subject matters, which videos, what exactly they would be looking for. I would love to at least have the clarity for them to say, for example, hey, if you're going to include a video that pertains to a certain 1940s ideology that existed and the people who are adhering to it today, then we would like you to put a disclaimer at the beginning that says they're bad, right? Or a warning, like, for more information, go to, and then some resource that tells you how to get out of hate groups. I don't know. If YouTube had some kind of a disclaimer that they wanted me to put, whatever it actually is, I would appreciate that clarity. As it stands now, they have not communicated their expectations to me. I know nothing, to be honest, of what their expectation would be for me to get it back. It's not appealable. I don't have the ability to tell them they did wrong. All I have the ability to do is self-censor and then ask them to put it back.
Yeah, you know, it reminds me of the time I got locked out of my phone. I gave it to my brother. I said, hey, can you guess the pattern on my phone? I didn't know that if you entered a few wrong ones, it would lock you out. There's nobody to speak to at Google. There's nobody at customer service. There's nobody at YouTube. It's horrible. When you have an issue and you're trying to get some sort of customer interaction, it's as bad as when I left my phone in the backseat of Uber. Nobody could contact you. There's no way to communicate with these mega companies, and unfortunately, what's happening with these foot soldiers, with the Carlos Mazas and the social justice warriors out there, they're becoming the useful idiots for the mega corporations to just get rid of independent content creators, and it's getting weird. We're taking comments here, and somebody in one of the groups is saying, hire an attorney. And I was going to say, Ford, I don't know if you even give a damn about doing such a thing, but I did watch an interview with the attorney who I believe took the Alex Jones case pro bono. He was on with Dave Rubin maybe a couple of months ago. I forget the guy's name, but I believe he takes cases pro bono, especially in situations like this. Maybe it's something to look into. Are you putting your content into other places like BitChute and Steemit and DTube? And where do people find your stuff now that, like, you have zero incentive to give YouTube any more free content for people to keep going back to?
Well, for the time being, I do intend to continue using YouTube because, frankly, it has a lot of people who watch it. A lot of people just like to watch YouTube videos. The same reason that even if I have issues with Facebook or Twitter, those places are places that people like to be. With that being said, my anti-censorship sort of solution is that I like Minds, which is a new platform that kind of serves the purpose of Facebook and YouTube combined, kind of blogging and really anything else you can think of kind of in the social media sphere. And so I have been posting basically all of my new content onto there. I don't have backups of my entire original channel on there, but I do at least have all of my new stuff will be on there. So if channels were to be lost, which I hate to say, I dread it as I say it, but if I were to sort of lose everything, then Minds would be the place that I know that I'll be able to continue posting until the end of time if I have to.
Tell me that comment. You said you posted something earlier today, and I don't have it in front of me, unfortunately, but you said when so-and-so and so-and-so are defending me, you know that we've entered a strange place. Do you know the comment I'm referencing?
Yes. So I was talking to the Washington Examiner, which is sort of a DC-based newspaper, and so, again, the entire reason that YouTube rolled out this whole problem is because of a feud between Steven Crowder and Carlos Maza. And those are a reporter at Vox and a conservative commentator / comedian. And Carlos basically had been saying that Steven should be removed from YouTube, where his content should be censored due to what he perceived as bullying. And so both of them, in the wake of this, have said that I shouldn't have been censored. So the two people whose feud caused this to happen both agree that this shouldn't have happened to me. And in addition, Ben Shapiro came out on my side, apparently, and as did the Atlanta Antifa. So the quote that I said to Washington Examiner was, I literally had both Crowder and Maza come out in my defense, not to mention Ben Shapiro and an Antifa account. When you've got Shapiro and Antifa agreeing on the misguided nature of censorship, you know you goofed.
No, it's classic. You are one of the many canaries in the coal mine that we've witnessed over the past 2 years, specifically since the original Ad-Pocalypse. And I take this stuff personally because our account at the New American Media has been decimated, shadow banned. demonetized in case after. I had sports videos demonetized. This has been nuts
Right.
for a long time, and I've put years of my time and energy trying to work with that platform, and I've completely lost faith in it. Yeah, I still throw things up from time to time, but I'm using Facebook, I'm using different accounts, I'm doing different things on Twitter and various spaces. For the future of journalism, the future of media, Ford, have you lost faith now? Are you starting to lose more faith? Is this confirming where you thought we were headed? Are you surprised? What's your takeaway from all this? Because people like us are doing what we're doing to build careers on it, and the rug keeps being pulled out from under us, and they keep moving the goalposts. We don't know which direction to aim the field goal anymore. What's your take on the future of where we're headed with the censorship and with media?
Well, I think it just depends on whether people I guess all political change. It's funny because this is something on which you're asking my opinion of how to change a trajectory of an issue in this country, right? Mm-hmm. Most of what I do is filming activism, where I watch other people try to do that with mixed success, right?
Right.
I film activists who certainly succeed and activists who certainly don't succeed. And so essentially you're asking me an activism question, right? I should be in favor of my own free speech. Ergo, I'm kind of an activist for that particular topic. I'm an activist for the concept of journalism. So the question is, what makes that work? Here's the thing that I've always found that is the most effective in activism. You have to build a coalition, right? The thing that I talk about with respect to, for example, gun rights activists, the way you win on the Second Amendment is you get pro-gun Democrats and leftists to join the right wing and talk about why they believe also that gun rights should be respected, right? You build a coalition outside of your traditional allies. What will not work, and what probably should not work, is one side owning the issue. There was a time in this country where what we consider to be the political left was the only ones who supported free speech. That a personal sort of hero of mine is Mario Savio, who was a liberal in a very traditional sense of the term, a liberal activist at Berkeley who protested in favor of free speech during the Vietnam War, right? And the FBI followed him until the day he died, suspecting him of being a communist, basically, or somebody who's rising up against America, in some way. Today, the political right wing has tried to adapt the issue of free speech as their own. And I think that the crucial thing to realize is that free speech and journalism should not be an inherently left or right thing. Neither side should own those concepts. And so the way that you win is to point out, as I've been trying to point out, the voices on both sides that say this is not what's going to win. This is not what's going to make the country better, right? So I've been making an effort to say for every Ben Shapiro supporting Ford Fischer today, there's an Antifa outlet person supporting me today. For every Steven Crowder, there's the Carlos, right? So showing that both sides support me in this microcosm, but then also saying in the future, live stream is an anti-fascist format, for example, as a defense of live stream. Or, somebody could say the exact opposite. It's an anti, the other side. But the idea of journalism as accountability should be something that anybody who is in the honest truth should favor. And so I guess I would say building a real political coalition and having not just the right, but also libertarians and anarchists and the left to say, we don't agree with censorship either.
Well, as a guy who tried to go on live stream on YouTube today, and I've done it many, many, many times before, today it would not work for me. I just wonder the guilt by association when they took down Milo Yiannopoulos and Alex Jones, and you've been on my program many times. You've been deplatformed. I typed into the site that I was going live with you. It refused to let me go live. So it's just interesting, these connections. And when you said live streaming should belong to one outlet or another, one ideology or another, obviously that is a bad idea. When Carlos Maza's out there saying that, I think he said that YouTube is a queer space, something like that. It's like, no, it's just a space. Like, this is a space where everybody, I like awful ideas because it gives us an opportunity to debate them, to debunk them, to show how bad the ideologies would actually come to fruition if enacted. I want more speech not less speech. I want more uncomfortable speech and less self-censorship and lurking in the shadows and kind of nudging people with the Overton window of what's allowable speech in America. I see all of this stuff is really dangerous. Ford, thank you for taking your time today. I have 2 quick questions on your way out the door. Thank you so much. I know it's been a whirlwind for you. Ford, as a guy who's had urine thrown on him by Antifa, by the way, is that a correct statement? I believe I have it correct.
That did happen, yes.
Okay, as a journalist who's had urine thrown on him by Antifa while just filming, what is your take on Carlos Maza, who has not been deplatformed, for encouraging assault and battery and the milkshaking of people that he disagrees with?
Okay, so loaded question, but I will try to answer it in a simple way. So I have said on Twitter, and I realized that to my friends, particularly on the right, that they were not fond of me saying this. But I blame YouTube for what happened, and I do not blame Carlos Maza for it specifically. I think that Carlos is misguided to ask YouTube to do censorship that I think very predictably is going to screw up. I do not think that a big behemoth of a corporation who is trying to gobble up money and is not interested in the ideological exercise of journalism, I don't trust them to do anything like this right. And so I think that Carlos was probably wrong to ask for that. He's also one of like a million people asking for it. And so the fact that he is high profile and maybe it nudged them and maybe it got them to do certain precise things, maybe he got them to do it today instead of tomorrow, whatever. I kind of think that these fall under, it's not the forefront of my concern. I really mostly think that this is an issue of the corporation, right, of Google and YouTube doing this to people. And so I don't place any blame squarely on him. I understand that your question wasn't actually necessarily just about that. You were also saying, yes, I've been a victim of political violence because of the fact that I'm filming, and hasn't he advocated the same? Sure, he's an activist, and he's. I think that he has a role that is obviously with a agenda. I don't know if he really considers himself to be a journalist or whether he considers himself to sort of be media with an agenda or what have you. I think it's pretty obvious that he has an agenda, and he states it out loud. It is technically protected speech to say, essentially, I think fascists should have milkshakes on their head, as a general matter. It's not, right? So I kind of see that as not entirely different from the kinds of speech that you're saying that you hate, but that you would protect. He has a free speech right to make that claim, even if he does not have a right in a literal sense of liberty and rights, or a legal right to actually throw a milkshake on somebody's head. So I realized that was sort of a long-winded answer, and maybe it wasn't a particularly direct one, but I guess the summary after saying all of that is I'm actually just not particularly concerned with him.
I want the soundbite, damn it, Ford. I want to take it out of context. I want the soundbite. I'm just kidding. No, I understand what you're saying, because you did say this is more on YouTube. It's less about Carlos. It's more on YouTube. And absolutely, you're completely correct on that. My final question to you, Ford. YouTube, it has enjoyed the legal claims of being a platform where people just post their stuff, and if they do bad stuff, it's on them. But they've enjoyed the protections. While they are now actively censoring selective content as a publisher. This is something Tim Pool and Joe Rogan are really, bringing to the forefront with their conversation with Jack Dorsey and Twitter and Vijaya. What is your take on this question? Should we be thinking about YouTube as more of a platform or more of a publisher at this point? You were demonetized from the platform by the act of a publisher who said, I don't like that content to make money. What say you?
Yeah, so I've had a few people ask me this today, and I think it is a very interesting question, and it is one that really messes with my head a little bit. So my ideal, let me say that before this became as much of an epidemic, like let's say 2 years ago, when my politics were basically the same as they are today, and my way of thinking about things politically and what have you, I would take basically the pure civil libertarian approach, which says, I'm a free speech absolutist, and therefore I consider a private company to be allowed to have on it whatever it wants. If YouTube says, I believe that everything is unacceptable content except for videos of kittens, and if your video doesn't have a kitten in it, it's going away and you're banned for life. That I would have said, okay, well, they shouldn't do that, and I will advocate against them, and I'll boycott them and whatever, but that basically they would have the right to do that. That's the pure libertarian belief, I guess, is that it's their thing, it's their property, they can do whatever they want. I'm hearing a lot of arguments that go the other way, that say something like, well, the social media platforms, while they are technically private, have become so gigantic as to be in this challenging place where the question is, what really makes them that different from a government, right? I'm sure you could find many people who would rather go to jail than to Facebook jail, right?
Wow.
And to take away someone's money is not so different from a fine, right? I'm losing my livelihood. When someone is sued, that's what happens vis-a-vis the state. Someone has essentially at YouTube declared that I'm not worthy of having money for my labor, and that's what's happening to me now. So does Google, with all of its power, both of just the nature of how much strength they have, and also their ability to change your decisions, do they become ipso facto a state or similar to a state? And that is especially complicated given how much relationship the big tech has to the states, right? If Facebook is advising them on, if the federal government is advising Facebook or Google or YouTube, like, hey, maybe you ought to get rid of these guys, then is it state censorship or is it private censorship when it occurs? And what does that mean for the First Amendment? I honestly think that these are extremely challenging questions, and I don't have a great answer to them. So as I'm out here kind of advocating for, I'd like my livelihood back, I'd like my income back, I have not mostly been framing that as a matter of I have the right to get it back. I think it's more like YouTube messed up. They made a bad decision as a company, and I would like to appeal to their public relations sensibilities, to their moral sensibilities, and their logical sensibilities to say you should fix this. And I think it's probably up to people who are smarter than me to convince the country one way or another about whether social media is a utility.
That is a fair answer, and I would encourage you to check out that attorney that took on the Alex Jones case pro bono on the Dave Rubin program. He's been on a lot of other places too. In relation, as we wrap this up, we're talking about, is Carlos Maza a journalist or an activist? One of our listeners just sent a comment. He said, "Don't forget to mention this guy came from the Media Matters think tank, the Clinton-appointed group. It's very connected to the deep political inner workings of what's going on in Silicon Valley. And when we're talking about private versus corporate, private versus public, rather, platform versus publisher, it seems like, they're a private company. They should be able to do what they want. Well, what if nobody will bank with you? What if nobody will sell you gasoline? What if nobody will sell you groceries at the grocery store? You go down this list and you start to realize if you are the target of a depersoning effort in a campaign, it really starts to blur the lines. I mean, if we argued for 5 years over whether or not somebody should bake a cake, surely having access to what is really now public square. This is the public square of the place where opinions and commentary and ideas are discussed. Everything is done online. And if you can't bank online, if you can't make credit card transactions online, can't purchase goods online without the mark of the beast, the mark of the approval of the powers that be in Silicon Valley, I mean, we have clearly crossed the Rubicon into dangerous, uncharted territory. And I really think your case, Ford, may serve to be the canary in the coal mine that's going to show the absurdity of what's going on. Ford, any final words from you on your way out the door, sir? Thank you again for your time. One more time telling people where to find you and something poignant to leave us with.
Okay, so you can find me on Patreon, patreon.com/Ford Fischer, FordFischer. If you would like to support me, especially given that I've lost my other part of my income, which is ad revenue. because of this. So support me there. You can find News to Share everywhere: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and mine. And I guess I would say here's a nice quotable quote. When you're thinking about these issues and when you're reading people's arguments about it, and so you're reading these stories, the only thing black and white about these issues are the pixels on the screen, right? This is not. These are not simple issues, and what the role of corporations are relative to free speech and the government. These issues go pretty far beyond what my outlet is about. I think that my outlet is a very interesting test case of the subject of what they're talking about, which is the YouTube's apparent conflation of hateful content with content that covers hateful people, and that is something that they are going to have to reckon with, and it is something that can affect many other outlets that may believe themselves immune to that kind of problem.
That is well said. And, I covered the Ariana Grande shooting, demonetized. I wasn't encouraging shooting. I'm covering a news story about a shooting, and I'm talking about situational awareness if you're at a concert and what to do about it. There's a big difference between advocating bad stuff and discussing timely news stories about what's happening in the world. And the fact that this delineation has been made by YouTube and the powers that be, it's really dangerous. It's really bad. It's bad for business. It's bad for freedom of speech. It's bad for business practice. And, in a way, I'm sorry you got caught up in this, but in another way, I'm thrilled you did, because look what's happening. In a lot of these cases, it backfires and boomerangs exponentially. Your name is on a lot of people's minds right now where maybe you weren't even on the radar before. And as my good buddy John B. Wells likes to say, if you're taking flack, it means that you're right above the target. So I don't know how this all shakes out, but I appreciate the work you're doing. I do encourage everybody to go check out News to Share. That's news, the number 2 share. Check out all of his websites and his Patreon as he suggested. And, our site got flagged when we posted the it was the video of Nancy Pelosi with the slowed down audio. And we posted, has this been slowed down? And we got a copyright strike or some sort of warning from Facebook. It's like, we're not pushing fake news. We're discussing something that we found while searching through the news that day. When the mainstream media and the dinosaur media companies have pushed a fake Russian collusion delusion story for 3 years, literal fake news for 3 years, all of those channels are still being promoted heavily at the expense of the independent content creator on YouTube. They haven't received strikes. They haven't been demonetized or shadow banned. They've been promoted. So on the surface, I'm not believing the terms of service and the rules and the guidelines that YouTube says that they're all about, because they've proven to not smack down the CNNs who've been pushing the fake stories. They're coming after us for asking the question, has this video been slowed down? So Ford, I appreciate your time. I'm going to keep following this story. I wish you the best. I hope that this works out well and you can get some conversation with somebody. They can correct what they did wrong. And honestly, I'm kind of looking forward to the YouTube competitor that can really do something better than what we've seen over the past few years. So more independent journalists like you and I can have a more steady foundation to build a business on when we're trying to act in good faith, like I think you are, like I think we are, and like I think a lot of people have been. Ford, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. You have a good evening, sir. I'll talk to you again soon.
Yep, yeah. All right.
Take care.
Yeah,
peace. All right, everybody, that's Ford Fischer. Whew, that was a lot to get in. That was a lot to discuss. And I did find it really interesting that YouTube would not allow me to go live in my live stream today. No reason. Restarted my computer, restarted all my devices, this phone, that computer, all the things. Everything was live except YouTube. It's that guilt by association thing that they said with, what was it, Gavin McInnes and Milo Yiannopoulos. You can't even talk about them unless you denounce them. And Ford's been on my show many times because Ford does good work. Ford's out there getting the stories. We don't, that's what the new American media is. The new American media doesn't believe the bullcrap that CNN is feeding us. We don't believe the stories that MSNBC is pushing down our throats because they've lied. They've created a fake news narrative on the Russian collusion, delusion, and crammed it at us for over 3 years. No penalties on social media. None. but we are supposed to take that as gospel. YouTube refers to it as, what are they doing? They're raising authoritative voices and they're reducing borderline content. Raising authoritative voices and reducing borderline content. Well, forgive me if I'm not going to go ahead and believe what YouTube wants me to believe. What Ford Fischer and News to Share is doing is something very important, something crucial even. They're getting you the raw, unfiltered, uncensored information. And yeah, I know, even saying that, it sounds so cliche. It's like, I feel like we've heard people saying stuff like that for years. But he's actually doing it. He's going into the middle of the melees just to document what's going on. Just to get the stories. We went out to the Bundy Ranch. You know, it was a complicated story, and then it got even weirder when it went up to Oregon. And then since, charges have been dropped, someone was killed. Things went weird. There was a standoff with the feds, and we went out there because we saw documentation of police attack dogs being sicked on a pregnant woman because... Anyway, it's a complicated story. I'm still not even taking a stance on the Bundy place, the Bundy Ranch standoff. What I did do is I drove out there. I met up with Blake Wally, a correspondent that's worked with the New American Media for years, and we documented what was happening. In your words, tell us what you think's going on. I don't know. We had our questions. We had our thoughts. We did our thing. Didn't reach any definitive conclusions, but we got the interviews with as many people as we could on the scene to get the feedback, to document it for historical purposes. That's what Ford Fischer is doing. That's what we're doing. Chris Cornell died, or was it Chris Cornell, or was it Chester Bennington? Did a show just talking about, their career and their retrospective. Our content was demonetized because it was discussing sensitive information. Who says you're not allowed to talk about the news? What in the world am I doing that's bad when I'm not allowed to talk about the news? How about my sports shows being demonetized? For what reason would you demonetize sports shows? Silicon Valley does not like anybody who's not progressive, hardcore leftist, hardcore left, authoritarian. I don't know what else to do with this. I don't know where else you're going to have an opportunity to speak to people in the public square. The public square is Google, it is Facebook, it is YouTube, it is Twitter. That's the public platform. If we start getting kicked off of YouTube accounts, email accounts, credit cards, grocery stores, gasoline, gas stations, this is not a world we want to live in. China's implementing the social credit score. If you are outside of the norm of what the powers that be want, you're not going to be allowed to travel in the country. You can't take flights. You can't do this. You can't do that. This is literally the mark of the beast. The sign, the barcode, the 666, whatever you want to call it. Unless you conform and get the mark, the blue check mark of approval, unless you get the mark, you can't function in society. I believe a book warned us about this type of stuff. And this isn't hyperbole. This is literal. This is stuff that's actually happening right now. How about Stephen Colbert? How about Stephen Colbert's skit talking about conservative commentator and NRA spokesman Dana Lash getting shot at the end of it? Why is Stephen Colbert still on, what's he on, ABC, CBS? Why is he still on the air? Why hasn't he been taken off the air? That was violent rhetoric. These are the book burners, the modern day book burners. In 2019, the Carlos Mazas that are trying to censor people. This Vox Ad-Pocalypse. You see what's happening here. These are big corporations. He has a mega audience. Disney purchased that. Disney, the same company that says we're going to pull out of filming in Georgia unless you continue to kill babies. Really, Disney? Haven't you made a career selling product to children? Which one is it? Do you like children or do you want them dead? It doesn't make any sense, and Vox is pushing this type of stuff. One day, and this happened earlier today, the internet stopped working. I had to unplug and reboot it, and it just got me thinking, one day, the internet is not going to work for you. One day, the internet is not going to be working for you. You're going to go to turn it on. You're not going to have access to anything. You can't bank online. You can't check into your email. You know why? I don't know. Because somebody says you're bleep. Fill in the blank. Fill in the insult of the day, if you will. What do you do when Twitter doesn't work? And you can't get the updates from USGS and all the stations out there warning you about tornadoes and impending flash floods. What do you do? What do you do when all your friends and family are disconnected from them because you connect with them on a daily on Facebook? Or you're using Facebook Messenger in a place where you don't have access to cell phone connection, and that's the way you communicate. There are things that have happened in the last 20 years that you cannot undo. You cannot unring the bell. You cannot unscramble the eggs of what the technology has done. I have been warning for decades. For decades. I was one of the last people I knew that signed up for a Facebook account because I thought it was freaking creepy. But then again, how are you going to do the new American media unless you're on the new American media? We're setting ourselves up into a situation where we're not going to have the internet one day. We're not going to be allowed to speak. We will be, yes, Leslie, we will be a non-person. We'll be unpersoned on social media. And in the world, when you can't bank, when you can't get groceries, when you can't order through Amazon. Oh no, they're private companies. Okay, well, Amazon's gone about the business of shutting down all the mom and pop stores by operating at a deficit for how many years? For how many decades before they finally ran everybody out of town? And the only place to get some things is going online. Just wait till you try to make an order for something you need and you can't. One day the internet's not going to work for you. And this is about all content creators. It's not really about some content creators. All the users of the internet and social media are going to be affected by this. YouTube, Facebook, these places eliminated competition and pulled the rug out by paying the content creators. That's a point that Steven Crowder was making. For years, they set it up to we'll give you part of the revenue. You know, we'll be teammates. We'll be business partners, essentially, in this. And then one day they just change the rules. And in some way, yeah, you're allowed to divorce people if you no longer want to be married to them. But in another way, just like the Amazon case, they've run the competition out of town. There's one game in town, and it's YouTube. I've put 8 years of my life, over 1,100 videos, working with YouTube, acting in good faith, covering weird stories, covering sports, covering music, covering current events. And to be unpersoned for this. These are now useful idiots, the people at Vox, the ones who go on the mass flagging demonetization campaigns. And yes, Chris is saying we have a whopping 4 viewers with great content, little reach. Yeah, I know. And Leslie, soon you'll own your soul to the company store. Yeah, we'll owe it to the company store, rather. Exactly. That's why there's suicide nets over at the factories in China. You owe your soul. You don't even belong to you. You're essentially a serf, a servant, a slave, a peasant. But these useful idiots are calling for all the demonetization and pulling the rug out. These are really enemies of free speech and the First Amendment. And I don't know how anybody can take it a different way. My channel was decimated. I was building a business model, going by the guidelines as best I could, and the content is so selectively enforced, it's hilarious. You can either laugh or cry. I'm really not laughing anymore. I actually laughed at the Russia gate, the Russian collusion delusion. I laughed at it for about a year and a half, and come on, like, leader of the free world, we have a country to run. Can you please stop getting in the way? No. None of the CNNs and MSNBCs that pushed literal fake news, quantifiable, verifiable, completely confirmed fake news, they're boosted. They're boosted as the authoritative voices. And they're reducing people like me and Ford Fischer and News to Share as borderline content. It's borderline to discuss topics that are outside of the norm of what the far left, progressive, Marxist, socialist, communist, Silicon Valley wants you to think. So now we just can't use social media because we're free thinkers. What are we doing wrong? We're not milkshaking, assaulting, and doing assault and battery. We're not harming people. We're not calling for violence. We're discussing a difference of opinion, which is protected in this country. And if you can't operate in this country protecting the First Amendment, you shouldn't be operating in this country. We have a set of guidelines. We have a set of guidelines here. As I told Ford Fischer, I want more ideas. Put it out in the public space, the public record. Agree with it, disagree with it, document it. Put it down. Let people see it. As many dumb things as AOC has said, with Cenk Uygur, being the puppet behind the screen, behind the scenes, man behind the curtain, with the Young Turks and their political action committee, and responding to the call as an actress to go to Congress. I don't want her to say less stuff. I'm not calling for her to be silenced. I want her to talk more. She's hilarious. Her ideas are awful. They're terrible. And the more we discuss them, the more we learn. I'm not trying to silence that. If you're literally breaking the law and calling for violence, like Spike Lee did down in Florida with what he thought was George Zimmerman, but it was an 80-year-old guy. If you're literally calling for violence, like the assault and battery of milkshaking people that Carlos Menz is going for, if you're breaking the law, I get it. There's certain amounts where people can be warned, certain amounts where people can walk things back and say, hey, I said a little more than I meant. I didn't mean that. I just having a bad day. That came out wrong. I want to redo that. I'll issue an apology. I've never met a person that hasn't gone a little too far. I think within reason, all of us can understand that. But that's not what we're talking about here. More ideas are better for freedom and liberty. I love the awful ideas because they're so easy to defeat. This is happening on all platforms. It's YouTube, it's Twitter. You can't really just go to BitChute, Minds, Gab, DTube, or Steemit. You can't just go there as an escape because it's going to follow everywhere. You've seen the coordinated effort between Twitter, YouTube, Patreon, all of the sites at the same time. They're working together. It's crystal clear. Tim Pool did an article on this about when Alex Jones was deplatformed on all of the sites. He got the press release before it happened. They're all working together. It wasn't a cascading domino effect of 1 clicks 2, clicks 3, clicks 4. They're working together. So there's a complete monopoly on social media. Yeah, just go to the site. Yeah, just go to the site nobody uses. Okay. Sure. Go to the grocery store nobody goes to. Are they even open anymore? There's not a single car in the parking lot. I'm sure the selection's going to be great. We have a marketplace of ideas. We're supposed to have a public square where we can talk. We have a protected right to First Amendment protected speech. There's no such thing as hate speech. Speech is speech, and it's protected. And if you're a vile human, at some point that's going to catch up with you. And it's documented enough times where you say, this isn't just a one-off, or you've gone over the line a few times. You're really just a crappy person. South Park is one of my favorite comedies, one of my favorite comedy shows. And they go over the line into places that makes me uncomfortable, it makes me kind of sick. It's humor I wouldn't make, it's humor I wish they would just leave out. But you take it as the collective, you take it as the whole, in general. You take the good with the bad. And we're afforded that opportunity in this world. Except in social media. So how do they get to operate in this country claiming to be a platform when they're clearly a publisher and they're not abiding by our First Amendment right to speech? That is criminal in my mind, in my eye, in my heart. Prove me wrong. It's a criminal act to defy the Bill of Rights in our Constitution. You have the obligation. It's not just a recommendation. You have the obligation to protect freedom of speech. If you're literally breaking laws, you can literally be arrested for them. You can be removed if you're encouraging violence. You can't be calling for violence. That's what Carlos Maza is doing. You can't push fake news and conspiracy theories. Except that's what all the mainstream media has done against Trump since he's been elected. You cannot selectively enforce one issue but not this, A but not B, black but not white, white but not black, whatever. You can't do one without the other and claim that there's any continuity, any rationality, any common sense. It's like the microaggression. I saw the story that NBA owners or the NBA National Basketball Association, the Players Union, is trying to get rid of the term owners in sports. Well, can you even own a company? How do you start a company? How do you own the New American Media? How do you run the New American Media if you're not the owner? And if we're going to take all the time, like the leftist professors in colleges want us to believe, the Marxist professors that are trying newspeak, this is allowed, but that's not allowed. How are you going to say you can't own your company? You can't own your team. But YouTube can have all the videos on there dropping N-bombs nonstop in all the hip-hop videos, making advertising revenue off of it. If you can't say the N-bomb, and you can't say the word owner, Okay, I guess we're going to go with a fine-tooth comb over every word and see if it makes sense. There's no ideological consistency of, using like the most offensive word ever created that completely dehumanizes people, especially the descendants of slaves that were property. Yeah, dropping the N-bomb is totally cool in our culture. Oh, by the way, I did that as, okay. That's been turned into a racial sign. The madness of what the radical Marxists are trying to get us to believe is astonishing. This means okay. And if you're going to tell me an owner can't own the team that they own, and you can't say that, how about you deal with dropping the N-bombs in all of the pop culture, hip-hop, and rap songs? How about cleaning and scrubbing that off of YouTube before you're going to go over, little tiny... what did Crowder call him? Crowder called... where's the quote? A lispy something is what they took Crowder down for. It's just... When one is the worst thing ever, and then the other's like something down here. And who's the judge over what's offensive speech and what should be allowed and what shouldn't? Everything is going to offend somebody, especially if you cater to it. Especially if you put your arm around everyone. Yeah, we'll get rid of that. We'll get rid of that. You're not going to have anything left. Yeah, Rob, maybe social media is toxic these days. Maybe it is. But there's you're going to worry about little microaggressions, and you're going to ignore the huge fake media, the huge fake news media with the Russian collusion delusion. Yeah, you can't say owners in the NBA anymore, but it's cool to drop N-bombs all the time on the Instagram feeds of all the NBA players working out and listening to stuff. I've seen it on LeBron's feed all the time, singing along, dropping N-bombs. I've seen his kid using it too. I watched LeBron's kid on Instagram dropping N-bombs, going, okay, well, you can't say the word owner, but you can say that word. That doesn't make a bit of sense. I don't think it should for any rational person out there. If we're going to do something, do it all. You can't just selectively enforce. And that's part of my problem with this, which is why I am erring on the side of more speech. Let people sound as dumb as they want if they're not committing a crime. That's going to reflect on them. That doesn't reflect on me. That reflects on them. And you should be allowed to go document. That's what the new American media is. We don't believe the lies from the mainstream dinosaur media that's pushing fake news conspiracies nonstop at us. So people like Ford are more important out there documenting things in real time. Put the video up, let the chips fall where they may. I mean, his footage provided a key piece of information in the conviction of one of the, I believe he's a white supremacist that pulled out a gun. I think he fired toward a crowd. And I think it played a key role in it. His stuff might have been even used in the vehicle that ran down people and killed somebody in Charlottesville. It's information. Information is neither this nor that. It's just information. And I say it about a car all the time. A car is neither good nor bad. It's a tool. It can either take you to the store, or it can take somebody injured to the hospital for a life-saving procedure, or it can hop the curb and kill people. The car is not evil, and a car is not, a godsend of wonderful benevolence. It's just a tool. What matters from the tool is the craftsman holding the tool. You know, they say owning a gun doesn't make you a marksman any more than owning a guitar makes you a musician. It's the intent behind the person with it. Comedians like Steven Crowder are supposed to be able to say stuff that's offensive. South Park, Stephen Colbert, all of this stuff. You know, I think there's a component to this where more and more of the legacy media companies are going after the independent creators. And that's something that really needs a little bit more attention right now. This is a coordinated effort to remove competition. Isn't there antitrust stuff, monopoly stuff, certain laws on the books that can be used to go after Disney, who through their employee Carlos Maza is going after the independent content creators? Isn't there something that can be done? Destroying your rival through covert means and through backdoor deals. Carlos Maza's from Media Matters. If you don't know the connections between Bill and Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party and the progressive movement and Media Matters to know where he came from, this is a political hack. Ford was saying, well, is he a journalist? Is he Activist. A journalist or an activist. Yeah, I think it's clear he's an activist. And we need to call it what it is. Remember, when you wake up and the social media isn't going to work for you, remember this in the 2020 election. Don't think that this is happening in a vacuum where social media realized that the free discussion of ideas allowed us to get through the veil of nonsense. If we wouldn't have seen that video, that covert video of Hillary Clinton stumbling and passing out and falling into the arms to be whisked away in some black SUV, we wouldn't have known just how sick she was. Yeah, the coughing fits. You can cover that up. Yeah, you can talk that one off. Event after event after event, but like literally collapsing into the arms of Secret Service. You need more footage of things, not less, especially for public figures. More transparency, less covert stuff. Bill Hicks, Sam Kinison, George Carlin, these are the people that we need right now. It's Orwellian. The newspeak and the vagueness of, yeah, we're going to say this thing. It doesn't really describe anything, but it covers all the things, and we're just going to selectively pick a few people off. And 80 to 90 to 95% of those people are on the right. On the non-hardcore progressive Marxist, cultural Marxist left, rather. Beware about what's going to happen in 2020 election. What if you showed up one day and your social media didn't work? How are you going to get the news and the information that you think? How are you going to believe anything? When the CNNs and the MSNBCs have lost all their credibility with you, the Brian Williams and the Rachel Maddows, just the lying hacks. It's one thing to cover a news story and get something wrong. I didn't research that enough. I shared something. I thought it was a credible source. People make mistakes all day, but when it's intentional lies and they've completely burned their bridge of credibility, what do you do when you don't have an alternative to get your news from? When you don't have access to social media because you didn't get the right Chinese social media credit score, your social credit score that they're doing in China, they're going to do it here. If you don't think our Twitter feed has been almost completely shadow banned for years now, you're wrong. If you don't think that our content has been demonetized and deboosted and deranked and shadow banned, you're wrong. And I have every right. Where's the camera? There we go. With the New American Media, the Unhappy Hour, Agree to Disagree. With all of the stuff I'm doing, I have every right to earn a living. I have every right to build a company. I have every right to use the social media that we all use. We've gone way past the point of this being a public platform. You can't just cut people off from email. You can't just cut people off from credit processing. You can't just cut people off from ordering on Amazon. When you've eliminated all the competition and you're left with almost nothing, you cannot then take that away from people. You think you've seen pitchforks and torches before? You are treading in a very dangerous territory right now. You being social media and the people in Washington that are not addressing this. Silicon Valley, you are getting very dangerously close to a very big problem. This is something I don't relish, I'm not happy about, and I'm not making threats. I am doing videos and I'm having conversations to warn of impending doom, warn of impending danger, to warn of problems coming around the bend. This is problematic. This has been growing for a really freaking long time. And we cannot trust these companies that are not respecting us. We know that Facebook's been under scrutiny for what they've been doing and selling private data. We know that companies are being artificially deboosted and deranked and demonetized. The selective enforcement of your guidelines is BS, and you know it. I used to try to figure out where I stood on this issue. Is this a platform or is this a publisher? It's clear this is a publisher. That changes a lot of legal liability there. But we need offensive jokes right now. We need George Carlin. We need Sam Kinison. We need Bill Hicks. Now more than ever. You know what we need less of? We need less of people like Carlos. I almost called him Carlos Mencia. Carlos Maza. Sorry. We need less people like Carlos Maza calling for physical violence. You don't punch a Nazi. You know why you don't punch a Nazi? Because your definition of Nazi is anything that's not culturally Marxist. It's because your definition... Oh, wait, I'm not supposed to use that word? What are we supposed to call it? Like Tim Pool and Ford just said, you're not supposed to punch somebody who closely aligns with mid-40s German ideology. I mean, this is ridiculous. By saying the word, I'm not saying that that word is awesome or that ideology is awesome. I'm trying to be accurate. When social media is saying you can't be accurate in your speech, what are we even doing? What are we even talking about? Laura Loomer, yes, talk about her. I mean, yeah, we have been shadow banned for at least 4 years. Absolutely. They've been doing this for years and years. Yeah, and I have been talking about comedians. We need more of it. But, how about this one? How about, where's this one? Jamie Foxx. Where'd I write that one down? Ah, here we go. How about Jamie Foxx, the comedian? He was on Saturday Night Live making the joke that I get to kill all the white people in the movie. How great is that? That's gross and vile. I like to ask the question when something has been said and no punitive measures have been taken. Why is it okay to go after straight, white, Christian males? Why? Why am I on the hit list for all 4 categories? Why is that okay? And if you don't think it's... Sorry, my ear's itching a lot. I don't know what's going on. Maybe somebody's writing a haiku about me. Why is that okay? Whereas if I changed that to a different race, would it sound as okay? Well, in my movie, I get to kill all the... Can't actually say it because that'll be clipped out by Media Matters and used against me as more fake news without context. Yes, they're trying to destroy my privilege. Exactly, Chris. Rob is saying we're too stupid and lazy. We should have been in the streets years ago. When they did Alex and we did nothing, they knew they could do it to everyone. Yes, he's the original canary in the coal mine. And we continue to use these platforms. None of these politakers are promoting Parler as the Twitter alternative. At least very few. I can think some of us like the drama because there's alternatives we can get together and support in mass, and we're not there yet. Yeah, I'd love to see an alternative. Well, if you don't like that gas station, then just go get gas at another gas station. Well, if there's not another gas station near you. Well, if you don't like Amazon, you can order it some other way. Well, nobody else carries a selection that Amazon does. Well, they're private companies, are they? And if you have to cater to everybody and bake a cake, how are you just going to shut off Patreon? How are you going to shut off credit card processing? How are you going to shut off selling goods in your grocery store? Buying stuff on Amazon, using Facebook, using Twitter, using MySpace. I know, is that a thing? Using Google, using Gmail, using YouTube. This Carlos Maza called for assaulting people, and he has not been removed from the platforms. It's just ridiculous. It's arbitrary. Arbitrary is the word you need to remember. This is completely arbitrary. People that have been deplatformed or demonetized, the Red Elephants. I've been watching some of their stuff. Some good stuff there. Mr. Allsup History. That's the one Ford was just talking about. The history guy got demonetized because he included footage of a German guy from the 1940s. You see how dumb this sounds? That I can't say the guy's name? Like he's going to be scrubbed from history? Like we're going to scrub the Bible of the devil? We can't... I hope I could say that. Yeah, and by the way, Amazon, don't pretend that Bezos doesn't have federal contracts and that he didn't buy the Washington Post. Thank you, Chris. Good point. Ford did say that this isn't really about Carlos Maza. It's about YouTube. All right. I get his point. I get what he's saying. Disney invested into Vox. Disney is pressuring YouTube to remove conservative content. Comedians are supposed to be able to make offensive jokes. Remember, the court jester was one of the very few people that was allowed to make jokes. about the king, about royalty, without getting hung or guillotined. Humor is very important in society, and if you remove it, you're looking at dark days, and I don't want that. I don't want the dark days. The content creators need to be given a space where we can do what we're doing best, and that's commenting on the news of the day. And this has gone way too far. Deranked, deboosted, demonetized, the rig algorithms, the shadow banning. This is about ideology. Plain and simple, it's not about any specific instances. When Vijaya was asked, the legal person for Twitter, when Jack Dorsey brought her on to the Joe Rogan podcast talking with Tim Pool, she cited 3 things why Alex Jones was removed, and one of them, violence against a child. You're commenting about the things that are scrolling through social media, and you're sharing it and you're discussing it. And then things that they claimed that he said that he didn't say. Even the specific instances that were discussed, and I'm not going to get into this. I covered this on a previous video. You can click subscribe, youtube.com/The New American Media while they'll let you. Click the notification bell. Follow us on Facebook. Taken out of context. You can't even find the 3 strikes. The umpire's calling you out, and you can't even really identify the 3 strikes. It's ideologically based. It's not regarding specific instances in way too many cases. This Carlos Maza called Tucker Carlson a white supremacist in his bio. So that's hate speech. That's hateful. Why are you not banning Carlos Maza? Tell me. Because it's okay to hate white, straight men? Why is that okay? I thought we're supposed to judge people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. You're calling him a white supremacist. He's not. You're saying it. So how does one get banned and one get promoted? It doesn't make sense. And I'll leave you with this. I was watching Styx. I don't know if you watch him, Styx Hexenhammer or whatever he goes by. He said, I spent 11 years on this platform and now I'm watching it commit suicide. Oh no, YouTube and the algorithms. I'm not talking about suicide. I'm talking about your channel committing user suicide. You're ruining something that was pretty cool. It was a place where a lot of people could get together and post videos and have conversations and share stuff. It used to be cool. I don't know what this is anymore. But it's not the YouTube that got popular that I remember. This is something awful. And I had a web designer that was we had the template ready to go, and he's having some health issues and we haven't been able to launch, but the goal was to put something together that was going to rival what is done here. So I've been delayed on that task. I didn't really intend to do that for the New American Media, but if the old American media has failed us, I'm left with very little recourse. I'm trying to work within your system. You flag me when I talk about Anthony Bourdain dying. It's content not suitable for viewers. It's the same crap that ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, that they're all discussing, that they all have advertisements running on theirs, but I can't on mine? You're being paid off. This is collusion against the independent media creator. You're breaking your own terms of service by demonetizing and deranking and deboosting my content. My content has been just as good, if not more factually correct, than a lot of yours. I've had people on, I've had interesting conversations, people I disagree with, people I think that go too far. You just have conversations. And I think my heart's always been in the right place with the New American Media. I think we need more speech, not less of it. And I found nothing but hostility coming from Alphabet, Google, and YouTube. Hostility. Over what? A difference in ideology. Because I don't agree with the hardcore leftist, Marxist, progressive slant of Silicon Valley and the people that run Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. When you've run all the rest of the competition out of town, and then you claim to be a private platform and you can do as you wish, you're not a platform, you're censoring. You're a publisher. And that has just opened you up to a world of legal ramifications. So, people like Ford Fischer, support him. Hey, you could support our Patreon channel. I don't know if it works. I really don't know if it works. It's linked. Was it patreon.com/thenewamericanmedia? It should be linked. The account's set up. I've had people pledge. I've never been paid from it. Does it work? I don't know how else you could support us. But I really like covering the news of the day. I like discussion, conversation, humor. I like talking about things. I prefer talk to violence. I don't want to milkshake people I don't agree with. I don't want Ford having urine thrown on him by Antifa. Covers... I can't even say the N-word. Not that N-word, one with a Z in it. Yeah. Punch the guy that affiliates himself with mid-1940s German ideology. Equate that to, there's a guy with a camera, throw urine on the guy because he must be supporting mid-1940s German ideology. It's all convoluted. It's all convoluted. YouTube, we're taking down all these supremacist group pages. And Steven Crowder. Wait, so he's a what do you... Huh? You know, there's the big thing, the big ask, the big, bright, shiny, glowing thing. Like this. Ah! And then underneath that, while your eyes are squinting, trying to refocus, that's the stuff that they're doing. In the fine print, that's the stuff that they're really doing. Look at this. You know, shaking the car keys, distracting the little baby. They're conflating actual, awful, criminal activity with opinions they don't like. Selective enforcement. This is garbage. Special thanks to Ford Fischer for watching this special episode of Agree to Disagree. He's had a very busy day. I fully expect him to get his channel back. And I fully expect that this public relations snafu to backfire. I expect that it will backfire. And Ford will come out ahead for it. I wish him the best. He does good stuff. He's doing the journalism. Honestly, after I went out to Bundy Ranch and I was interviewing the people and they're pointing up. They're like, you see up, that's where the snipers were. There were 2 snipers on that ridge. They were flying over with helicopters and shooting the cows that were in the pasture. They were shooting and killing the cows right there. Then there were snipers over there. After I went out there into the middle of that, I kind of decided I don't know if my place is going to be going into the melee. I don't know if that's really... I was rattled by it. I didn't like it. Knowing that there were trained marksmen looking at you and watching you. That your license plates were being flagged and that you were now on the list. Yeah, we were on the list. Why? Because the Bureau of Land Management had gotten very aggressive, violent, and put a lot of charges out there on things that did not stick. A lot of false accusations, as it were. Because just in watching it, it seemed like there was something egregious going on, and it looks like time has proven that to be accurate. So, I decided I don't think I want to be in the middle of the melee and get hit with a tire iron. What was that? The professor from Berkeley hit somebody with a bike lock? No charges, right? If I'm remembering that story correctly. Ford is out there in a helmet, body vest. Watch his footage when he's in Ferguson in Baltimore. And he can't tell you about what happened in Baltimore. And I'm not going to say it for him. Or will I? Ford was subjected to things that should not have happened. And I believe an amicable resolution was obtained by both parties. Yeah, the powers that be can go too far. The police and the people with guns can go too far. And it's very important, it's crucial that the new American media are people like us. It's like the Rodney Kings. Go out there with your camcorder. Just capture what's happening. Let the people see it. Whatever it is, just capture the thing. You know, we should have some basic privacy in our lives. But when you're at a newsworthy event, you shouldn't be filming people in their backyard. That's just creepy and gross. But when you're out at an event, you should be documenting what's happening because it's less likely that MSNBC can lie to you about it. It's less likely that CNN can lie to you about it. It's less likely that the feds and the BLM can lie to you about it. It's less likely that Baltimore police can lie to you about it. It's less you get what I'm saying? In the public space, there's 2 types of public space. One is the physical public space of the public square, of public events, of protests and areas like that. Then there's the public space of debate, of social media, using the internet. They're both important, and I believe they're both equally protected under the First Amendment. Right to free speech and assembly and freedom of the press. First they came for Alex Jones, and I didn't speak up because I've heard him say 200 wacky things that I wanted to distance myself from. Then they came for Gavin McInnes, and, I've heard him say some stuff I didn't like him saying, and I thought some of his jokes were a little too mean-spirited and went a little too far. And they came for Milo, and I didn't say anything because he made a couple crude jokes and was pretty mean. Then they came for Ford Fischer, a guy who's just filming and documenting stuff, a filmmaker that's getting content that's used in criminal proceedings and documentaries, and they came for Ford? Of course they came for Ford. They came for me. And they're coming for you next. The internet's going to be what we allow it to be. The reason I talk as much as I do and I'm engaged in social media and the platforms and the conversations and the team of people that I work with, loosely and specifically, the reason I do what I do is because I'm worried future generations, future people, future Americans, future humans might not have the same access to the internet like I did. I'm not going to say nothing. This is important. And not everybody's a supremacist or an evil human being because they disagree with you. They're coming for all of us. The professionally agitated, the community organizers who do nothing more than sow the seeds of outrage everywhere, they will never be placated or satisfied, ever. The worst thing you can do is succumb to it. The worst thing you can do is try to placate it and play by the rules. Because they keep moving the goalposts. There's no rhyme or reason, consistency or logic. And if you can't apply even standards, you shouldn't be applying them. And if we don't speak up to fix what's going on right now, if we don't speak up, I'm worried that we're going to lose the internet. I think it will backfire, David. I do. That's the hope, at least. I sure hope it backfires. But that's up to you. What are you willing to accept? Where are you willing to spend your money? Make the call. My name is Brian Engelman. This is the New American Media. For as long as you're allowed to see it. Signing off.
Your guide to the truth. TheNewAmericanMedia.com.